shots of gin, closing in. You'll curse the day that you were made, gonna have my way and put you in your grave.
All right, Nelson McKinney, great to have you on the show, brother.
Yes, sir. Good to be here.
Perfect. So you've already had a busy day at school, yeah?
I have, yes, sir.
Goodness, yeah. Is it business management out at West Texas A&M?
They're doing business management. This is my senior year, and yeah, it's going good.
Okay, so no victory lap, no crazy fun coming up. Just finish it and be done, yeah?
Pretty much. I'll enjoy it while it lasts, I guess, and try to hustle through all the exams and the homework and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm ready to graduate.
That's what I'm talking about. And are you set for December, or are you going to be in May?
I should be December next year. Actually, I get a bonus semester, so I've changed my major a few times, and it's cost me a little bit of time.
And do you study business to try to apply it to what you're doing with music, or do you want to have a comfortable position while you grow your music until it can take its place?
Actually, that's kind of both. Those are two of the reasons that I did choose it. So obviously, one was to kind of be able and learn some stuff about managing my music for sure, but also, there's not a whole lot of money in it for anybody that's not, being played on every radio station all the time. So
yeah.
Definitely gonna try and apply that.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's crazy. We had talked about it a little bit, but the fact that on Spotify we got less than 200 listeners a month, and yet you are a killer, man. You're so good at what you do, and we're in the middle of a country renaissance, and it just seems so difficult for some people to find great country music. And I know that it is such a weird position for artists nowadays, because you have to be good at short form media. You have to be creating some type of content. And if we asked, Towns Van Zandt to create content, I think he would have probably started hitting someone. George Strait had to do it too. He'd be pretty pissed off. Can't imagine asking Johnny Cash. So where have you seen, especially, only being 21 now, and you've been doing this, playing shows since you were 14, what have you learned, and maybe advice you've seen that really sticks with you? You don't have to give away your secrets, but anything you've learned from like having to play into this media game.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely something that I'm still learning how to do, still figuring out, and definitely not the best at doing it. But I've had a lot of people tell me, kind of what you were saying, the short form, 30-second to 60-second TikTok videos, Instagram Reels. Those are kind of what's really getting people to blow up right now. And I think consistency is a big part of that. Just making yourself present on social media on a weekly basis. Some people can do it on a daily basis. I struggle with weekly. I'm trying to do monthly here, but we're working my way up slowly but surely. And I think just being consistent is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And also playing live, I think you also have a great mentality too, even as young as you are, to understand the importance of getting out there and getting in front of people. Is there a specific venue that has like a special place in your heart? I know, I've seen a lot of Tacos Garcia, the Golden Light Beer Garden, Wesley's, other stuff like that. Is there anyone that really sticks out to you that you're like, that even if I blow up out of nowhere and go big, I want to come back and play this venue?
Definitely, yeah. There is, most of these places are in Amarillo that we've talked about, and the big one that sticks out for me is the Golden Light. I think it's the oldest restaurant in town, the cafe is, and I've always loved the food. They've got a heck of a burger and some great fries, but they have a cantina that's kind of on the other side of the wall from the cafe, and a lot of big Texas country artists have gone through there. I remember I've seen Jesse Daniel there. I've seen Jake Worthington there a few years ago, and there were probably 15, 20 people in that room, and I had a front row seat to one of my favorite artists at the time, and still is one of my favorites. But I got to have a conversation with him in there, and I got to meet him there. I got to meet Will Bannister there.
Mm.
Some really cool people have come through there, and so lots of history for sure. That's also kind of the place that I started doing gigs at first. I was 14, and the manager of the Golden Light had asked me. We kind of talked about it, but I was starting to be more comfortable with singing and playing the guitar. And she said that she would let me sit out there every Friday for a summer on the back patio while people were eating lunch. I'd sit out there and play my guitar for a couple hours with my good friend, Mr. Gary Wayne Thomason, and yeah, just kind of learned how to work a crowd and how to make a set list and pick songs and do all that sort of stuff back there. And after the patio gigs, I got to play inside the cantina a few times now, and man, it sure is cool. It's a neat spot, and I've had my CD release party there when I released my EP back in I think July of last year.
Yeah, like into July chances. Yeah.
Sure, that's the one. So had a photo shoot for all that album artwork in there, and so yeah, definitely the Golden Light holds a sweet spot in my heart.
Oh yeah. Texas takes pride in a lot of things, like HEB, Bucky's, a lot of other things. I think the Texas music scene, like the local spot, is insane. I mean, you go north in your area, you go central, you go south, even west. It's all so deep and it's so talented. Everyone out there. I mean, like you're saying, like the fact that Jake Worthington would play a spot like that. I mean, you have so many opportunities to really cut your teeth in Texas that I don't see how people will still say, oh, like, hey, culture doesn't matter. And I'm like, do you see how much we got going on in Texas? That's a huge deal. And the thing is, once we lose this, it's not coming back. And so seeing like you learn already how to run a crowd, how to do those things, I think that's so vital because like we were talking about short form media, there's so many people that they'll drop one song on TikTok, it blows up and they're playing the Opry. And it's like, I get that you're humble, and you're like, oh yeah, I played this, I played that. I mean, it's like you don't understand the amount of effort some folks put in just to be able to be seen. And I like what you have said it was a blog post, but it was written in one of your bios about the fact that you're like, I want to stay independent, but if I could get a little extra money from a label, that's local, I'd love that. And I think that's so good for Texas artists. Like, I think you're in a great triad. I see you very middle ground of like an Aaron Watson, Hayden Baker, Randy Travis type middle, like pure Texas country with some good picking in there. And so that leads me to think, how was it opening for Will Bannister?
Man, that was something else. Will is somebody that I've been following for a while, and I'm a huge fan of just pure traditional country, and Will is nothing short of that. So just knowing a lot of his music and getting the opportunity to open for him, I about fell over and passed out when I heard that I was going to be opening for him the first time. And yeah, so sure enough, the day comes around, and I show up for sound check, and Will and his band are getting things ready on the stage, and I got to meet him, and man, he's the kindest guy.
He's just a simple man.
And just really, he was willing to talk to me and set aside his time to just get to know me and pour into me. And yeah, I will never forget meeting him. He's been super great to me.
I have yet to get to see him live. Every time he comes to Fort Worth or anywhere around, it seems I'm out of town for something. But I look forward to trying to get him on the show because I just love what he's doing. I love seeing who he's getting to collab with. He has yet to drop a song that's not just an absolute hit. And again, he's just a character. I really look forward to getting time with him. But Gary Wayne, I saw him all over your account. And I personally, and maybe a lot of our listeners don't know who that is. Tell me about Gary Wayne. I couldn't even find his music.
Yeah. So there's a lot to say about Gary. He's got quite the resume. But I met Gary, well, actually, he was friends with my dad growing up. They went to school together. And Gary and my dad had kids at the same time. Me and Gary's son, Chalk, are the same age. And so I remember for the fifth grade talent show one year. Me and Chalk were going to school together, and I got out there and played my guitar and sang a song. And Chalk got out there and sang a song while his dad Gary played the guitar. And so Gary and my dad I think they kind of reconnected there and caught up a little bit. But Gary came to me and he was like, "Man, you're pretty good at that old guitar," which, I was not, but he was kind about it. And he said, "Man, do you wanna come over to the house and just jam out sometime?" And I was all starstruck because he's incredible, And I was like, "Well, heck yeah!" So sure enough, later on we got together and I went over to his house. We just played some songs and hung out a little bit. When I was, kind of the Golden Light gigs, we started playing those together, and ever since then we've done a ton of little local live gigs together, even a couple band gigs. But Gary, looking into his history, he used to play with, I don't know if you've heard of the Groovies.
Mm-hmm.
Was the lead singer for them, but Gary played with them and made a killing just hanging out with those guys. He's got a lot of connections in the Texas country, the Red Dirt world. I think he's played for Stoney LaRue. He's written songs for guys like Cody Canada, I think Mike McClure from the Great. But yeah, he's got several connections of just writing songs for people and playing with people. But he's not somebody that's, you might not recognize his name if you saw it first, but he's definitely got some credits that you would recognize.
Those are great people to be around. Great people to be around. So he had a big influence on you. Your dad played guitar. Was that an influence on you as well growing up?
As long as I can remember, just hearing my dad sing songs and play guitar around the house. He writes songs and, he would play covers too, of course. But growing up, I don't ever remember a time not hearing him sitting back in the bedroom jamming out. My dad always told me that when I was real little, I was the kind of kid that would just sit in front of him and watch the strings real close. Whereas, I have a little brother, and he was more the type that would go up there and, play through the strings real hard. I remember there was one time he broke one of my dad's capos, but my dad said I was always the kind to just kind of sit back and watch. And I think that really had an impact on me. When I was 7 years old, I decided I wanted to play guitar and, kind of be just like my dad. He was my hero. Yeah, so he bought me a little guitar, and I started taking lessons for a few years, and the rest is history.
The rest is history. I love that. So you had a lot of solid, humble folks around you to build you up there. Who would you be humbled to be compared to if someone were to say, "Man, that last song, it sounded a lot like this individual"? Who would really humble you if you were compared to them?
Man, there's a lot. That's a long list for sure. I think my biggest hero is probably Mr. George Strait right here.
Yeah.
I love kind of that he's in 90s neo-traditional era, all the good stuff. And then, plenty of new guys like we were talking about, Will Bannister, Jake Worthington, Zach Topp is a big one. So yeah, I could go on that list forever, but I'd be humbled by a lot of those guys.
Love that. So obviously, then, since you're a big fan of him, we can talk about this because I have kind of a controversial take. George is obviously the king, right? But who do you think the GOAT is? And the thing is, to remember, this is not, I wouldn't say, I feel like a lot of country fans, country is such a broad genre, and we try to, it's almost like we're trying to discredit other artists by saying who the GOAT is. But in reality, I think your GOAT can be different than someone else's because it is all subjective. And also we have a lot of different memories with these artists. However, I do think, like George, there's guys who are pure country artists where they can slide into bluegrass. George went a little more towards the Tejano side because, again, Texas. But I think he could cross subgenres and not skip a beat, So that's where I kind of draw the line of GOATs of if you're going to say someone's a GOAT and they are just bluegrass players, okay, I think we can, I would argue someone's GOAT, but who would you particularly say is the GOAT of country music?
That's a tough one for sure. George Strait's definitely got one of my favorite voices for sure. Definitely has a great ear for picking songs. He's got a great catalog of catchy songs you can sing along to. I think when you're talking about the GOAT, the greatest, you got to look at songwriting too. I feel like is a big thing. Maybe even life experience and how that plays into songs. And I think the main name that's coming to my mind right now might be Merle Haggard. He's got a heck of a voice. He's got voice. Escaped prison, 20 times or however many times. He lived everything that he about. He played guitar, played the fiddle too. I've seen videos of him doing that. He's funny. He's witty. Got great stage personality, and he can write. I'd say Merle on that one.
Okay, good. We're on the same page, so there's no discussion there. That's normally where I do discredit George, is the songwriting side. I mean, he just got inducted into the Songwriter Hall of Fame. Was it Texas or country as a whole? But I was like, ooh, that's kind of weird. I'm not going to lie, because, again, great artist. He has the experience, rodeo guy, really great stage presence. Even if he didn't have any of that and he was simply just a face, I think he's a great face. Didn't have much controversy, but like you said, it just comes back to the songwriting, and that's part of country, is what makes us who we are. And that's why I say he's the king. But yeah, for the longest time growing up, I always said Alan Jackson. But then I don't know truly what changed, but I was just started to recognize, I was like, I've always loved Merle, but I was like, yeah, no, Merle is insane. Just absolutely insane as a country artist. And I would be proud to have, if anyone looked into who we are as a genre, I would happily put him up there. And again, that's no disrespect to all the others. If we named George Jones, if someone that I've heard people try to argue, John Prine, Ricky Skaggs, but even Ralph Stanley, but again, I feel like some of those people are too pigeonholed in their genre, like their subgenre, that they're so good at that particular thing that they can't cross over much, as well as someone like Merle. So I'm glad we agree on that. And so kind of continuing through growing up with these influences, obviously gospel church had a big influence on you. Tell me more about, right now you're still doing the youth worship leader, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I've been, when I was I think I was in the 7th grade, but that year is when you get bumped up into the youth ministry at my church at First Baptist in Amarillo. And I decided I wanted to join the band, the youth worship band. And so I kind of got to grow up in there playing with a bunch of my friends and just learning how to lead worship. And leading worship is different than playing country for an audience. I think the main difference is that when you're doing worship music, it's not about me, it's about Jesus. And so I got to learn a lot about what worship really looks like there. But yeah, I grew up through that ministry and kept playing in the band. When I was graduating, there was a class right below me, and just about everybody in that band was a senior. And so, kind of looking into the future, our youth pastor, Bradley, kind of noticed that there was going to be maybe a period of time where there weren't as many musicians in the band. And so he hired me right then after I graduated to kind of work a part-time job and just help out and fill in for the band and kind of help raise up some new students to lead that. Yeah, it's come a long way. It's going good right now. This is probably my last year doing it, I think. But a bunch of kids in the band this year. Our church has recently built a new building for the youth, so we've got a new stage and a new room and new sound equipment. We're so blessed to have, and looking forward. I think it's going to be really neat to watch it keep growing.
Love that. On that, I always love to talk to Christian artists, especially if I've been in church their whole life, about the contemporization of both country and Christian music. Again, the pipeline from Christian to country is nothing new. I mean, it's been going on. I mean, I've seen since the 80s, but honestly, what do I know? It's probably been longer than that. But I would say after the 80s, we saw that huge contemporary movement in the 90s where we kind of saw the mentality of church become more like seeker friendly, where they cared more about like, well, if the kids like hip hop, we're going to try to make hip hop Christian music, or if the kids like rock music, we're going to make Christian rock music, And I've seen a very parallel between like honky tonks and church, to where both are really focused on numbers. And again, I don't want to say it's a business necessarily in the church, but a lot of churches do run like a business, and they definitely are more focused on numbers sometimes than they are on the art, on the, like you're saying, the focus of what it should be on. Same thing in the honky tonk, right? It's a very easy to just put on Merle Haggard or a lot of these old heads, but of course we got, we need newer music. Now, since 2016 with Sturgill and Tyler starting that country renaissance, Chris Stapleton in 2019 kicking us off with Tennessee Whiskey and Justin Timberlake, I would say 2019 is when Texas country, they've been doing great, right? All the underground scene, Red Dirt, everything, they were doing fine. But then they started hitting mainstream, and the honky tonk kind of came back. And we've been in that renaissance now for 5 years. And every time I think, social media, someone's going to say country's corny, and then we're going to be right back where we were. And there's just that feeling of like, I feel it on both sides. We have such a craving for truth and a craving for like authentic art. Yet on the same side, our mainstream people, our biggest names on both sides, are people that I don't genuinely believe in that sense. And I'm not here to put you on a hot seat and be like, tell me what you think about these people. But when I see people like Brandon Lake, right, where I'll see people go to his concerts in stadiums and they'll be like, oh, it was great. It was a great worship ceremony. And I was like, okay, well, you're saying it's worship, but this other person's saying it's a concert. So where does that accountability come in? Is he connected to a church now? Because he came out of Bethel, or did he come out of Hillsong? No, Elevation. I think he came out of Elevation with Stephen Furtick and all them. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. The listeners can correct me on that. But that leading to the point, now he's starting to make country music. And again, that's nothing new at all. There's country artists that make worship music that I'm like, again, it's good, cool, great. But the issue I'm seeing is that kind of contemporization where everyone just kind of feels like, hey, man, they're trying. And I was like, yes, I agree. Always try. The gospel's being shared. Fantastic. But when it comes to the individual and also our mentality as consumers, what is our focus? Where are we at? And so I'm curious what you've seen when it comes to worship songs currently and also mainstream country, to where, again, we have great artists, specifically like you, that are coming up writing the majority of your songs. You solo wrote everything I've seen, and you're also getting out there and cutting your teeth on it.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious what you see in the contemporization, if I'm fully off, or maybe you see it. What are your thoughts on all that?
I think it's really interesting. You kind of drew a parallel between worship music and country music and how they've contemporized. That's something I hadn't put much thought into. We're talking about country, even I remember seeing an interview of George Strait, and he was saying the cool thing about country music is that it always comes back to its roots. See that throughout history, starting off with kind of the Hank Sr. era, as traditional as could be, and of course eventually it starts getting a little bit more of that Nashville kind of pop sound, and the outlaw movement. Willie and Waylon, and they're kind of rebels against that sound. I think start drifting a little bit more towards pop, and you've got this era, George Strait, Randy Travis in the '90s. Lots of traditional stuff there. We move into the 2000s and things start going a little bit more towards pop again, and here we are. We're back. We're in that Renaissance era now. Things starting to go back to their roots. So I think that's one thing that's really cool to watch about country, and I think. Looking at worship music, at my church, we do a lot of hymns, we do a lot of stuff that's kind of straight out of the hymnal on Sunday mornings. And we do some contemporary stuff, but majority hymns. But even just looking at how worship music has changed, from the traditional hymn style to, jumping into the early 2000s, there's kind of the rockish kind of sound. And now it's, a lot of, I guess, kind of pop maybe is what you would love.
Yeah, it's like melancholy. It's very feely. And a lot of people try to say it's like, oh, masculine and feminine, and that's why men don't worship. And it's like, oh, settle down. But yeah, it blends that or blurs that line between, are we focusing on the Lord, or are we focusing on like my sadness, or again, are we ignoring my sadness? That's a big deal too. It's like in worship, I see a lot of people writing these songs and they do write sad, you know what I'm saying? Like they grieve, but I'm like, what you're talking about is very vague. I don't feel as though like you didn't just lose a child and write a worship song about it. You know, you didn't go broke and write a song about it. You didn't face a hard situation and write about it. You just kind of like, it felt like you got in a songwriter circle and y'all are just like, let's start with this quality of God, love. And then they write this whole song and it's like, you sound like everyone else, you know, and yet it becomes like the most popular. And then also how we're performing, like you said, like it's not about you, yet we just keep putting smoke machines out there and lights and bigger screens and the music's louder. And I'm only 29, man, so I'm not even a decade ahead of you. And yet I feel like an old head when I was growing up where they're like, if it's not a hymn, it's not worship. It's that's from Satan. And I'm just like, okay, that's too far as well. Same thing in the honky tonks. Like people are like, if you line dance, that's not country. It's like, okay, it came from the honky tonk. Let's not be so purist and gatekeeping. But I get what you're saying of like, can we trust these people? That's to me where it comes back to is like listening to someone like you. I never questioned, did this guy grow up on a ranch? Because even if you didn't, you could lie to me and make me believe you. You know what I'm saying? Or just ignore the fact and let your music speak for itself and no one would worry about it, right? But like you're saying, there's just those certain twangs and certain sounds you hear in worship that you're just like, I don't know where this is coming from. And that's where when then every song we sing is that contemporary worship starts to make me wonder of like, we do need to mix some hymns back in. I don't think we need to go full hymns, right? But I don't know, guys. I'm not like I love liturgy, and I know I'm more of like a scripture strict guy. I'm much more tough than others, but like, where's the boundary? You know, where's the boundary with Christian and country music, right? I don't know.
It's definitely something to be cautious of. I know that there is, like the music has definitely changed in style a little bit, and maybe some of it has become more of a. Some of it's modeled like the mainstream industry, the secular industry, and I think sometimes for people that can take away from the worship, but for each individual, um, I think it's possible for us to worship two songs like that.
Mm-hmm.
It just, it depends on the heart. Are we focused on the music, how it makes us feel, or what the artist is like, or are we focused on the words? And I think that's one of the beautiful things about hymns. The lyrics are so rich. There's a lot of big words in there that we don't use anymore, but if you know what they mean, it's just so rich.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know who wrote it. You don't know anything about that person. You just see the song and you're able to think about the lyrics and what the lyrics mean. You talked about people that haven't really gone through anything and want to write a song about it. Reading through Psalms, which is probably my favorite book in the Bible. It's a really cool book. But you can see David, when he's writing a lot of these and the other psalmists, they weren't just happy and joyful all the time. They went through some stuff, and you can see the hurt that David had. Or if you look into "It Is Well with My Soul," old hymn. I think the writer's name was Horatio Spafford, but
Mm-hmm.
he wrote that song was because he lost his wife and I think his daughters. They were sailing across the Atlantic Ocean, I believe, had a shipwreck or
Yeah.
something happened, but he lost all of them. And he wrote that song because of him saying, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say. And that's a really beautiful way to start writing a song.
Exactly. And that's I think what you just said was so important is because I think that's where people think I might be a little bit of a purist because I think if the lyrics are rich enough, each person will be convicted in their own manner. And even if you're not convicted in that time, even if you're not in a place that you might feel exactly what that person felt, it's not on the worship leader to make you feel a certain way. It's the worship leader's job to present the song well. And then it's your job to take those lyrics and listen and then like put it back to the Lord, and that's where hymns to me work so well because those lyrics change with their life. You know, you might have sadness as a teenager and you're going to have sadness as an adult. But the thing is, those sadness, it's going to change and it's going to have different meanings. Same thing in a honky tonk. Just pick a rhythm that you want to like bring about. And that's thing too is how you want people to respond to it, you know? So like you can like, and that's why I love when people get creative. You can write a sad song on a polka, but no one's going to know it's a sad song because they're dancing, you know? And in the same way, you can write a really happy song that sounds sad and people waltz to. And so you can either just dance to dance, or if you just sit down and listen to the guy, it's like, wow, you know? So I can either enjoy this on a back road crying because I just got broken up with, or I can be in a bar dancing with someone and have that like be the happiest I could in my life. We get really happy during sad songs. I know any true country music fan, we love sad songs. And so, yeah, I think rich lyrics is what it comes back to. And that's what I feel the contemporary, I guess that's what I was getting at is contemporary. It feels as though it's almost like when worship leaders are like, raise your hands, you know, it's like, what if I don't want to raise my hands? I will raise my hands when I feel the need. I will dance when I feel the beat. But in the end, you don't need to tell me or try to make me feel a certain way. If you feel this way and you present it to me well, people are going to take it really well. Because in the end, again, it's not even about the people. I think worship leaders need to hear that too. One of my buddies, JD Clayton, I grew up with him. He's a great, like, kind of folk, Southern rock type guy. And he and I were talking, and he said, I think too many artists are trying to give people what they want. Artists were always meant to give people what they need. It's like a doctor. You're supposed to get up there and tell people what they need to hear, even if they don't like it, because you're doing it over a song, and art is always about interpretation. And so your job is just to get out there and hand them what they need, not what they want. And so even if it's not right there in that moment, they appreciate it. They will appreciate it when they need it. And so that's what I guess we found the point of like contemporary is not bad. I never try to use the word good or bad, but when we allow that contemporary to lead us, like you said, out of tradition, out of these eras, that's natural. But you got to have people that pull it back. And I think right now, too many people are fighting the pull back to tradition because they think it's like restricting them, when in reality, it sets you free. Yeah. Yeah. Well, enough of me preaching. Let's get back to you with the worship. So your music, man. I've been following you for about 2 years, and I've seen growth in just those 2 years. And now you're coming up on nearly a decade of playing like music. And so I'm curious, talking about, you know, you had your Chances EP drop last year. Also, who sang backup vocals for you? Because she did fantastic.
Didn't she? Yeah, her name is Rachel's aunt.
Okay.
She's somebody, you know, I was talking about kind of growing up in the worship band at First Baptist. That's where I met her. She was in that band. And so we kind of went through high school leading worship together and learning each other's voices and how to sing together. And so when I went in the studio to record that EP, she was one of the first people I thought of that I wanted on that record for sure. You know, there's hardly anybody, if anybody, that can sing along with me as well as she can.
Don't belittle yourself that much, man. You got a good voice. But she matched you really well. Yeah, I think that was a really good choice on your side, because for the folks who haven't listened to it, it's a very deep EP with very different sounds. And so I love, you know, Devil's Breath when it comes to, I even love, to be honest, and that's what I want to go into, is 3 Mississippi. Like, you change so much on certain ones of these songs. And so I'm curious, when it came to the writing and the experiences behind it, if you just want to walk through each one, but I'd love to start with 3 Mississippi. Like, where did you get the inspiration? Was that personal experience? Was that just like, man, I'm gonna write a fun song? Because it sounds so lived in. Okay.
So that was one that he wrote. He was on tour with the Groovies, and they had stopped at a Dairy Queen in Abilene, Texas. You know, they were getting a bite to eat or whatever. And Gary was fixing to go use the restroom, and so it turns out the drummer was in the restroom and the door was locked or whatever. So he knocks on the door, and the drummer's in there, and he goes, "Give me 3 seconds." And so Gary's like, "Well, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi." And he goes, "Hey, you know what? Why don't I write a song about that?" And Gary is just he's just a funny, goofy guy. And so that's kind of the story behind that song, just a goofy little experience at a Dairy Queen. And the first line is, I was sitting in a Dairy Queen just outside of Aberdeen. And so I guess he was looking up towns in Mississippi for the the three Mississippi part, and Aberdeen was as close as it got to Abilene. And I think that there actually is a Dairy Queen there, but it's actually based out of Dairy Queen in Abilene, Texas. Fun fact.
Come on, maybe we can get you a Dairy Queen sponsorship.
That'd be awesome. That'd be pretty cool.
Do you go to Dairy Queen often?
I go every now and then, for sure, definitely. When I was a kid, there used to be a Dairy Queen in Groom, Texas, halfway between Amarillo and where our hunting lease is. And so when we came back from a deer hunt or whatever, we'd go stop at the Dairy Queen and get a steak finger country basket and a Billy Bar or a dip cone or a Blizzard, or. So that's kind of what I think about when I think of Dairy Queen.
I love that. I love that. You also had Devil's Breath, and dude, that gave me just straight Cold Heart Steel and Sand from Braxton Keith like vibes there. What was the inspiration behind that?
So there actually is a true story behind that one. That's a song that I wrote with my dad. I guess my first cousin, his name was Damon, but there was a day I think he was driving home from work, and he got into some sort of road rage incident, and so he and this guy pulled off into a church parking lot in Amarillo, and Damon opened his car door, and he was going to step outside, and the other guy was already outside of his car and shot him right there, and he died in that parking lot. And so, yeah, tragic story. But Damon had a brother that my dad said was, in high school, he was the kind of guy that you just didn't want to mess with. And so we kind of wrote the song from his point of view of, like, you killed my brother, I'm gonna get my revenge on you. So that's kind of that's the tragedy behind the Devil's Breath.
Wow. See, again, a very lived in experience, a very real, like, hard experience. That's where good songwriting comes from. And it's not as though we go looking for those. But I love that Jake Worthington recently was interviewed, and he was talking about the fact of, like, he has some sad songs still sitting there because he doesn't want to release them. And he almost hates writing them because he's like, on one side, I don't want them to come true. But on the other, I don't want other people to have to, like, face these things, And that's the hardship of being an artist, man. Like, you have a lot of power in a pen, and so it is a hard experience. Jeez. What about
That was another one that I kind of wrote with my dad. Just kind of thinking about, exactly what the song's talking about. What if there was a girl you knew that you never took the chance with? What if she was the one that was gonna, bring meaning to your life or whatever, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's kind of where that came from. I was wanting to write a kind of a slow ballad, just classic country feel, and so I started writing the guitar riff at the beginning of the song and sort of came up with a melody for the verse, on my guitar.
Yeah. Has that affected your life? How's dating for you?
I've been in one relationship, and I dated a girl in college for about 1.5 years, and didn't work out. It was a mutual breakup. But I know that was not, she's not gonna be my wife one day, and that's okay. So I haven't. I think one day maybe I'll get to a point where I'll be able to, sing about, our lives take us places where our hearts just can't go. I hope that I hope, kind of like Jake Worthington was saying, I hope that I don't have to live that, wishing that there's a girl that just, it didn't work out and I wish it did. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now with that.
Love that. Yeah. I think that, though, that's also in the song that you're writing, is the fact that chances are that it might not be that way too, but you'll never know. Yeah, so it's been a pleasure, dude, talking all your influences, all the stuff you got going on. You're doing a lot of great things, Nelson, but I want to make sure you get an opportunity to tell the people listening what you got coming up, any new releases, anything you'd like to say to these folks. The mic's all yours, brother.
For sure, yeah. Y'all be sure and stay tuned to me. On social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever it is, I'll be posting covers, and if you're in the Panhandle area, I'll be posting some live shows that I'll be doing, and hopefully in the future it'll be even further away. Maybe I'll come down to the Fort Worth area, or we'll see. But yeah, other than that, keep an eye out for new music. Hoping to do that eventually, get some more out to you. And yeah, thank you guys so much.
Hey, well, we'd be happy to host you, man. It's been a pleasure. And again, guys, just make sure that we change how many listeners. Let's see if we can get to 1,000 monthly listeners a month. Because Nelson, you're doing some great things. You got a good head on your shoulders, and I look forward to looking back to this episode when you're regularly traveling, getting a lot of good shows, and you don't have to use that degree at all. Because I
Yeah.
think you're one that's coming up that deserves it. So hopefully, we can help you get some exposure, man. But until we meet you next time, brother, you have a good rest of your day. All right.
Yes, sir. You too. Means the world. Thanks for having me.